across the internet, as they say. I like to think of across the internet as like across the galaxy.
There you go.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
All right, Chris. Hello. Good to see you. I believe we are live in CPA and elsewhere. We are going to get started with the conversation here in just a moment. Friends, if you're watching, I would love it if you do a couple of things for me. First of all, if you would go ahead and just click like, click share, make a comment, just say hello. Let me know that you're watching. That would be really helpful. And just to let us know that you're out there and you're doing it. Also, the coolest thing with this is you can comment. So when you comment on the feed, I will put that up on the screen. Particularly if you have questions, we're going to answer questions later. That's how this works. Would love to go back to those and answer any kind of questions that you have. Those are really, really helpful for us as well. And what you got to do is you have to authorize and let Ecamm, which is the program that I'm using, know that you're allowed for us to show your name, which would be great. So there should be a link in this. And if there's not, I'll grab it and I will share it as well as we get going so that you can simply say hello. So so the coolest thing, Chris, I don't know if you've seen this before, but the coolest thing is when we can put somebody up on the screen, right? So this is Jillian. Hey, Jillian. So, but there's a link. I got to find the right link. So there it is. Okay, so I'm going to paste this in the CPA group because I didn't see it in the comments right there. So in the comments, I just posted the link where you can click. If you click that, it'll authorize Facebook to let us use your name on the screen, okay? And if you are anywhere else, like LinkedIn or someplace else, should be around, or you can just go to ecamm.live/connect and authorize that there as well. Okay. All right. Friends, we're going to talk about something cool today because we are going to talk about community. And if you know me, you know I care about community, particularly for your podcast. One of the ways, I'm going to talk about this here in just a little bit, but I just want to tell you before we get started why I'm talking about this. It's because I think starting a community of people around your podcast is one of the most powerful ways to promote your podcast, right? To bring in people who care about the same things that you care about, have the same experiences, things like that. So Chris Grainger is our guest. I'm going to introduce you here, Chris, in just a moment, but you've got a little bit of experience with community, and we'll talk about that. But just tell us, before we get started, a little bit about what kind of your experience with community? Has it been a super powerful tool for you?
Oh, it's been the most powerful by far.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been podcasting for years, but community is it's taking it to a whole new level for sure. And by the way, I want to say hi to Leslie. I see she put something in the comments, so say hey to her out of Texas.
There you go. All right. Where's my comments? Yeah, we could put Leslie up here. Okay, so here's the link if you guys want to go to that and authorize it so that we can put your pictures up, or it'll be like your Facebook profile up here. We can say that. What's up, Leslie? All right. So let's get going. I'm going to hit record, and then we're going to record an episode of the Christian Podcaster. This will be coming out later this summer, probably. And then we'll record our episode. I got a few questions for you, and then guys will have questions from you. So if you're listening, it would be delightful if you would ask your questions as we're talking. Whatever questions you have, we will answer them as well. Okay, so let's go. I'm going to hit record. We're already recording video, but I'm going to record audio externally, and I will introduce you. All right?
All right.
All right, we're recording. Hey, friends, welcome back to the Christian Podcaster. As always, I'm your host, Eric Nevins. This is the podcast, the official podcast of Christian Podcasters Association. If you are a Christian podcaster, it doesn't matter if you have a podcast that is for Christians or about theology of the Bible, or you're a Christian who has a podcast about your business. Christian Podcasters Association is for you to help you start or grow your podcast to reach the right audience and ultimately, I think, to reach the world, because content is how the gospel goes out in the 21st century. I'm excited that you're here. This conversation is going to be a good one. I have this kind of 5-part worldview about creating podcasting, and I'm gonna share a little bit of that because I want you to see where this fits in this conversation. I've been talking about this on the Christian Podcaster. It's I say it's like a house, but like got kind of 5 things: your mindset, your message, your mechanics, your marketing, and your monetization. Well, within marketing, we all want to know how to grow our show, right? You want to know how to grow your show, how to get more people, how to get more eyeballs or earballs, as it were, onto my podcast. Well, there's several ways that you can do that. And I've got kind of 5 things like email and social media and having great guests and all that. But one of them that I think is neglected and maybe not always talked about is community. Starting a community for your podcast. That's probably the one thing I stumbled into best in CPA is I decided to start a Facebook group for Christian podcasters, and it's a great thing. Like I really still to this day, it's one of the things I do that I most love. And I think it's where podcasters connect. And I think it's really, really powerful. Okay. All of that to say, I've ran into our guest today recently. We were introduced, and he's been on my show, and we've been hanging out. And I'm excited. He's got a community, and the way he did it, and some of those things that he's done, I think are going to be really good for us. So I wanted to talk about it. Our guest, he's the founder of The Lion Within Us. It's a podcast and membership community designed to help Christian men take accountability for themselves, their families, to grow. Right, Chris Grainger. Chris, welcome to the Christian Podcaster. I'm glad that you're here with us.
Oh, Eric, it's an honor to be here. Looking forward to serving and answering questions and talking about community.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've done this really cool thing where you had the podcast and then you started the membership community. So I want you to tell us a little bit about that story. Tell us some of the origin story of kind of the Lion Within Us first, and then how you kind of added on the community and how that came about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I started podcasting in 2020 at my secular job, and that was been 100%, one to many, right? And that was really to help that company get a lot of influence and kind of be out there in that space. But then God laid it on my heart, said, all right, you need to take this skill that you've been taught and serve me. So we started, we came and prayed about it, went to my wife, said, I think God wants me to start a podcast serving Christian men in the area of leadership. She laughed because at the time we had 3 girls at the house and her, so I was in a house full of women, but we still started the show anyway. And but I've quickly learned God just as I was sending these messages out every week, on the podcast, and then we had exponential growth curve on the podcast that just blew our mind. I was still just that one to many, right? And I was craving that connection with the listeners, and I started listening to different people, and this idea of community kept popping up. And I was like, that's it. I mean, God just clearly laid it out. Said, yep, this is what you need to build. So around the fall of 2022, we really put that into action. And that we can definitely unpack, how we started and soft launch, founder members, that kind of stuff, because that may be helpful for some of your listeners out there that are considering taking this path.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think that is interesting. And I think what you said there is great. You wanted to connect with your listeners more, right? And that's what
Absolutely.
What a community can do. Okay, so how did you know that, besides your own kind of feelings, how did you know that your audience needed a community to join and to be together?
Well, I was looking at podcast downloads that were going high, and it was usually around where we were talking about these topics around building a lion's den, having that group of men that you can have around you to help push you and get you to where you need to be. And then sometimes I would just reach out to people on LinkedIn, and they would hit me up directly, or they hit me up on Facebook, and I would just have conversations like, why do you listen to the show? Well, for one, it's not crap. It's not, you're not trying to preach at me. I just feel like I can connect with you because you're just a simple Southern guy. So I was making that connection there. But the bigger thing was, I just want some guys to talk to. And so I was like, oh, okay. So it started to really seem like it was more of a user driven, a listener driven idea of these guys are really just craving connection because churches, I know you have a Christian audience, but let's just be real. Churches and men's group, they're terrible. They don't know how to do it. And it's just, they think like a sausage biscuit on a Saturday morning. It's like this men's group. And I'm like, no, bro. So a lot of these guys are just out there just lost and alone. And they just like, they want somewhere they can go and be real. And that kept coming back, that was a need there to feel. And I was like, you know what? We're going to figure out how to do this.
Yeah. Okay. So you did something really interesting there. You were reaching out to your audience, or you're reaching out to people on LinkedIn and other places and hearing them. I think that's one of the things that can be a little discouraging for some podcasters because they don't get a lot of feedback. And so how did you handle that and get to some of your audience and maybe elaborate on some of those things that you did to reach them?
You got to start with a lead magnet, right? You got to have some type of lead magnet to get them in, to get your little email list going. And look, my email list is still terrible. It's not thousands. We're talking about less than 500 is my email list, but it's an engaged email list. And that's the difference, man. I'll take an engaged email list of a couple thousand versus 20,000 any day of the week, right? So I had just built a couple of lead magnets, and I promoted those heavily early on in the podcast. And that really generated and helped us get from, 0 emails to a couple hundred very quickly. And, from there, it was just being very intentional about reaching out to the one, because, in the CRM, you can see who's engaging, who's opening, who's paying attention, and then just narrow that down and reach out to those people. And that's what we did. And, now there's even a software I use called Bonjoro, and just now I can send like little video messages to these people, and I've seen engagement go up even more. So it's just trying to find a way, bro, just to be intentional and make connections with your listeners, and outside of just the podcast media. Because you think about it, when they're listening to you, they're probably on a treadmill or driving or something like that. But if you can actually talk to them and get them one-on-one, then they got to stop. And then you can really have that relationship opportunity. And that's what I'm finding through just looking through the lead magnets and things like that of focusing on that email list.
Yeah. What was your lead magnet?
We had a couple. I did one around like 10 scriptures to fight like a lion. So this is like 10 scriptures. If you're having trouble memorizing scriptures, like, let me just give you 10 super easy ones, but they're going to be super impactful ones that's going to help you fight the battle that you need to fight. Then I had one for like 9 habits that you need to make be an effective leader. So they were the 2 big ones. And that we just promoted those nonstop.
Yeah. How long were they? Were they like, thousands of pages?
No, PDFs, bro. Like 1 or 2 page PDF, and like the 10 scriptures had like a 10 email sequence that came along with it.
Okay.
So I would drip it with them along the way. And then I did write an ebook. So there's a longer piece of content for there. So that's a personal finance ebook. So that's on our website too. But by far, the 10 scriptures and the 9 habits is what they gravitate to the most. Now I'm in the middle of building a whole new lead magnet because I think we got to ramp it up, but just start with the simple lead magnet, answer a problem, and then usually that will get some traction.
And that's exactly what I was trying to get at, because I think a lot of us want to make our lead magnet bigger, better, badder than the last thing or something else that we've seen. And we compare ourselves to people who have been doing it longer, or who have had more time, or have teams. Some people have whole teams, creating stuff for them online, and we compare ourselves to them when really all you need to do is really, Canva is an amazing tool at this point. Like, you can do just about anything that you want on there, and you can create a PDF that you can give away, and it doesn't have to be, pages and pages of content. It just needs to be that quick win. Let me give you some scripture to think about. Let me give you one thing to do, something that connects to your people. One thing that you've done really well, I think, Chris, is you know that your message dials into exactly the struggles that men are feeling.
Right. Yeah, and that's because I sat down and I designed an avatar, and I got really clear on an avatar. So when I write, my avatar has a name, Bradley. There's a backstory. So I test every piece of content I put out, particularly around lead magnets, am I speaking something that I think is just going to make me feel good, or am I helping Bradley? Because if I'm helping Bradley, then we're going to get some traction. So that's really where I test everything against. It's not like ideas that I have. It's like, all right, how can I serve this one person?
That is a whole mindset shift, right? So instead of, is this my content that I'm doing for myself, or is it something I'm doing for someone else that I can actually speak to that person and into their lives? That's a whole different deal, right?
Yep.
I love that. I love it. Okay. So you mentioned Bradley. This is your avatar. I was going to ask how you defined who your audience is. So how did you come up? Did you go through like some exercise for defining your avatar, or how'd you find that?
Well, I sat down. I actually went through Donald Miller Story Brand.
Oh yeah.
He has story brand training, and he's got a book. And I mean, you can just sit down and literally go through the book, bro. It's a piece of cake. You're probably pulling it up right there. There you go.
Yep.
So Donald Miller's awesome. Stu McLaren, all these guys are
Yeah.
awesome, right? And they just help you just think through, and it all starts with who you want to serve. And for me, it was just very clear. God wanted me to serve the Christian man that not necessarily was just getting started, but just maybe a couple steps behind me. Because I'm not a pastor, I'm not a theologian. I'm just a man who loves God and want to help somebody, avoid a lot of the mistakes that I've made. So it just started sitting down and just writing it out and testing it and talking to some of the people. And I tell you, the avatar has shifted since the community started. I started thinking my avatar was in the early 20s, but now my avatar is 35 to 55. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason is because I figured out when you get in your early 20s, you know everything. So let's go ahead and talk to the guys that are 35 to 55 because they're the ones that actually say, yeah, I think I need some help with this stuff, man. And that's just where our community is at. So it's just the avatar getting super clear. So we redid the avatar about a month or two ago just to help with thought process of content creation. And that's really helped me dial in on a few things.
Yeah. Okay. See, I think that's really powerful. And what I love what you did there is you adjusted as you went and you found that these are the people who are actually responding to my message. You don't have to get it
Right.
right the first time. You just have to look at you start with one, you'll attract other people, and then you may need to evaluate. I love that. Very good. Okay.
Yep.
So you decided to do a community and a kind of paid membership that you're doing with that
Mm-hmm.
with the line within us. Tell us about the process of kind of starting that, because I don't know about you, but as I've been looking around the last year or so, finally my platform has one, but there's all these other places where that have platforms where you can do it, and how did you decide like the structure and the time,
Mm-hmm.
and like what'd you consider, and where'd you end up?
Well, we looked at a lot of different ones, man, and a lot of different platforms. We ended up we tried Kajabi, and I tried that for about 8 hours. I figured out that it would not do what I wanted, so I demanded a refund. They gave me a refund, so we ended up going with Mighty Networks. And I didn't start off with a paid membership, man. So I opened
Mm,
the thing up, and we started it off with a beta. And I was very clear with my podcast listeners, like, look, we're starting this community. I need you guys to jump in here. I know you're listening. We're seeing the downloads. I need you to sign up. And I said, it's it's open. I just need some feedback. And then I hit my email list. And within a couple months, we got that membership up to about 150 guys. And they were in there. They were engaged. And that also gave me about a quarter to test a lot of stuff, man. I mean,
mm-hmm.
just who would come to stuff? What did they like? What did they not like? What does actually running a community look like? Because we have the forum going and you have all different events and things like that. And there's so many things you could do. It can be so overwhelming. And like, what was their user experience like? So that whole first quarter, it was just learning. But around November, I said, okay, guys, January 1st, the paywall is going up, and this free thing that you guys are liking that seems to be serving you, there's going to be a paywall because at the end of the day, this is where God's leading me. And I don't know about you, but when I go to a grocery store, they demand money. So I can't just walk out the grocery store out with food unless I pay for it. So this is a different type of ministry, but it is a ministry. So guys, we're putting the paywall up, and I actually, and I'm giving you all the details, man. And you stop me where you want.
I
I
appreciate it.
pulled a
Keep
group
going.
of the, I pulled a group of those guys that were in that community, about 12 of them, and I said, I need a steering committee, and I need you guys to help show me what's the right price point. So we had what would be an awkward conversation, right? Was totally not awkward. I was underselling myself. I had the price level way down here. These guys were like, Chris, we see what you're doing, bro. You need to be up here. So we ended up meeting in the middle, but they drove it. And you guess what? So when I took the price point to the community, I said, now look, This is not Chris in a vacuum. This is Chris going to a group of members, Lions, getting their feedback and also testing it against other communities that I'm seeing. Because some of these things, I mean, some of these communities out there, they can be $10,000 a year. I mean, you can put some serious bank in a community. I said, but here's where we landed. And we landed based off of this feedback. And you know what? We converted about 23% of that free group into full-blown members, and probably 80% of those or more went with the annual plan. So they're already annual members. We gave them a founder's discount. But man, that was a big way to make the community, because you always fear like, how do I start a community? Because I don't want it just to be like two people, because then that's just weird, right? It's just like nobody's there. You have to have some people to have engagement, or you don't want just to be you the only one that's putting stuff out all the time. That's not a community. So you got to have a good mix. So right now we're sitting just right around 50 guys. It's growing. And now I'm using them. They're my biggest advocates to promote with their other friends and things like that to bring them in. But that soft launch, man, that was huge.
Okay, I love the strategy. So what did you do? People who were in it that decided not to pay, did they just no longer had access?
Boot them out, man. You got at some point, and that was tough. I had to sit down on January 1st. I sat down because I had to count down, man. I was doing a big countdown in the podcast, a big countdown in the community. And it was hard to sit down and knock out, basically 100 people. And I tried my best, but, people don't convert. Sometimes when the head and the heart's one thing, but hitting the wallet, that's a different thing, And so, but I will tell you this, even though that was hard, it was the best thing I ever did, because the community at that point, from that moment, it just like it came to life. Guys wanted to be there. They had skin in the game, and they were there intentionally at that point, man. So it was probably one of the best things from a health standpoint. We had guys that were in there soliciting and all this and trying to come up with, so I was like, so we were able to get a lot of that stuff out of there, and just be really, now we're just like the guys that are there, they want to be, and we still offer a 30-day free trial. So we tell everybody all the time, you have a month, like check it out. And if you end up not liking me or not liking the content, then bounce out. That's fine. And we've had people do that, but we've also had a lot of people who stick around, and had several members who say, you know what, I joined just because I thought you were full of crap. And then after joining and seeing that this is like for real, they're like, I got to stay now because it's too cool. I'm like, there you go, man. This is just give God all the glory.
Man, I love that. Okay, so tell us about what's the most effective way that you promote your community. How are you getting members? How do you get people to join?
Podcast is a big one for sure. We have ads specific. So I don't use any space on my podcast for promoting anybody's stuff except ours. So I stopped all the affiliate marketing. I don't do any of that stuff.
Yeah.
I do 100%. I want people to buy my stuff, and our stuff is the community. So that's been it. And somebody told me one time, you can spend, unless you're someone like, my buddy Al Robertson and Unashamed, and you have millions of downloads a month, you're going to have a hard time making serious bank with affiliates. I'll get more if I sell 2 members a month on, through my ads than 100, affiliate marketing. So I'm big on that. And then email marketing around the community itself. And then from there, it's just a matter of, it's literally talking about it everywhere I go. Podcast, that I do a lot of different shows, and just talking about the value of community, and just where you can try to serve people.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so I love that you're able to use your podcast to bring people into your community and to tell them about it. This is one of the things I think is sometimes, there's a statement Paul makes, right? How will they know if they're not told, right? Like that applies to your podcast too, to your community. Also, obviously, the gospel. If I'm borrowing here, but yeah. But you have to be willing to say something and tell people that this is something that you offer and that it is out there. I love that. Okay, so within that, I know you and I have talked before because you were a recent guest on Halfway There, my podcast. We talked a little bit about some of the things that are happening in the community, and how you're kind of fostering honest conversations among your members, and you're seeing some things where guys are holding each other accountable, and they're coming in and saying, hey, I got to change. How are you doing that? What are the ways that you do that inside of a Mighty Networks group?
Well, inside of Mighty Networks, you basically set up these spaces. So we have spaces set up. So it starts off, one of the biggest things I do every morning, Monday through Friday, well, first of all, our Monday episode on a podcast is called Spiritual Kickoff, and they get a lot of downloads. So it's just me unpacking one or two verses of scripture and how to simplify and apply it to my life. Very, very simple thought, right? You're gonna find there's a very common theme with me. It's simple, like a simple man, like the Leonard Skinner. That's my
Yeah.
theme song of my life, right? So there you go. So every day I go in, Mighty Networks gives you the ability to go live in your community. So I go live. I'll usually have, I don't know, 10 or 12 guys on in the mornings, and I'm just reading scripture and telling them how they can apply this scripture to their walk. And right now we're working chronologically through the New Testament. It's really cool. We just started James today. It's my favorite book of the Bible. I was pretty amped up this morning. So we do that. And then we post those recordings in a space within the community. So if you can't make it, it's no big deal. You can watch it on your own. And I have so many guys tell me, like, I can't make the time you're on. Like, no worry, bro. And they'll go watch it. So we do that. And then we have events. And we're big on events because I'm big on getting guys together. So you have to have a mix of these things, guys, if you're thinking about it. So we have masterminds. I have 2 masterminds going right now. We do a Bible study on Thursday nights. Wednesdays, we do a lion lunch, and that's just 1:00 Eastern. Literally, you're just having lunch. You'll be surprised how many people come to that. Saturday morning, I have a Bible study that a moderator leads. We're just kicking up a dad boot camp, like a workshop, like a 10-week thing to help us focus on be better dads. There's a sexual purity workshop that's coming up that we're working on. We have a business meeting once a month. We just started a book club. So it's like a buffet. This is the best example. Like, I'm going to give you all these options. You'll never eat them all. I mean, you just, there's no way. But I'm going to try to make it super simple where you don't feel like you need to eat them all. So I have some guys who literally just come to the Thursday night Bible study. I have some guys who just come to the SKO. I have some guys who try to come to everything, but it's there for them. And you just make it, the biggest feedback I got is you got to make it super convenient for men to come together. Because if you just say, hey, guys, get around and talk, they ain't going to talk. But if you give them an opportunity to come together and talk about a topic, then they'll open up. And I'm telling you, I have seen it. Like, I teach Sunday school. So you try to get a bunch of guys talking, it ain't going to happen. But in here, they'll bring it up. And I ask them, why? Why do you guys talk about your issues with pornography, your issues with your marriage, your issues with your finances? Like on the first meeting, why will you bring this stuff up? They're like, well, I'm not going to run into you at the grocery store after church, or at the restaurant after church. Like, they feel a level of separation, but also an extreme level of connection with these guys. So you just create these events, and of course we have a forum and things like that. And one of the big things, you got to make it sticky. So Mighty Networks has an app for their phone. So a lot of these guys, it's right on the hip pocket at all times. They get notifications. And I've had several guys that say, I've deleted all my social media apps. The only thing I have is the Lion Within Us. And it's just changed them, because when they're there, they're not going to see, nobody's going to mess with this algorithm. They're not going to be scrolling and all of a sudden there's a picture of a chick, right? Or something that's going to pull them some alcohol or something like that. Nope. Right. If they're within our community, they're going to get fed what we feed them. And that's, godly things, godly content. So that's been the biggest area, is just make these events super intentional and give them opportunities to engage. And then that drives a lot of the content that I create.
Yeah. Fascinating. Okay. So, but you also mentioned like 3 or 4 different things that you're doing every week, right?
Yeah.
So that, to me, I'm just imagining everybody listening is going, okay, that seems like a lot of work. That seems like a lot of things that I got to do. How do you manage all those requirements, creating the content, the meetups, and all that kind of stuff?
Well, at Mighty Networks, when you set stuff up, you can set up recurring events. So like for my Bible study, the Lion Lunch, all the things I just talked about, the masterminds, they're recurring events with their own spaces. Now, to scale, I can't be all me, right? I mean, people come to a community a lot. For one, they do come. So if you're thinking about community, they are coming to the community for more access to you. So you need to realize that, that they do want some access to you, but you got to make it super simple. So like when you're thinking through all these different events and things like that, a lot of times I'll have moderators who run these areas, and moderator is just a community member who I've elevated. So it's really cool when you go to people and say, hey, I need your help in this space. Would you mind being the moderator of our Saturday Bible study? And immediately guys jump over it. Like the book club idea just came up this past weekend. So I went out to the guy who had the idea. I'm like, this is a wonderful idea. I don't have time to do it. Would you mind if I create the space and help you with the content would you mind facilitating this? And he's like, would love to do that. You know, he has a leadership opportunity and a community that teaches you about leadership. So for me, it works that way, but it can get hectic. And if you try to make yourself the center of every one of those meetings, it will definitely drain you. So I'm trying to engineer
Right.
myself out of some more of these and let the community itself, live on its own. And that's when you have a healthy community.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. So what I've been thinking about this a lot because so like tonight in our CPA Gold meeting, which is my membership for Christian podcasters, we're talking about Caitlin Beatty's idea of which did you read Celebrities for Jesus? You should definitely check that out if you haven't. This great book. But she defines celebrity as influence without proximity, right?
Mm,
Which is sort of the opposite of what you're doing. You're
amen.
creating a community where you know people, where people know you, where you have, even though you're not in the same geographical space, you still have, you care about who they are, you care about what they can do, they could reach you if they need to, and in the process, you're elevating and giving responsibility to other people, so it's not all about you. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
fantastic and kind of amazing. Um, I do love that. I kind of think secretly, don't tell anybody I said this as we record it and broadcast it all over the internet. I sort of secretly think that some of these communities, I know it's not a replacement for your local church, but as you mentioned, sometimes these communities are filling a need, right?
Yep.
That our local churches aren't able to do.
Right.
And I'm more okay with that than I used to be. Than I would have been, say, 10 years ago.
Well, I mean, I tell people all the time, like, yo, I'm not your local church. There's no
Right.
substitute for your local church. I am a very good, not I, the lion within us is a very good supplement, but we're not going to replace your local church. Like we got to get you plugged into a body, brother. I mean, that is most important. And I'm also just very real people, man. I'm
Yep.
very open and honest. I've dealt with anxiety. I've dealt with stress. I've lost a child. I've been through a divorce.
Yeah.
Like I've lost 130 pounds. I used to be 330 pounds. Like I've gone through some crap, right? I mean, and when you are open and honest, like people, that just resonates with folks, man. Versus
Yeah.
just the fake you, like that guy's doing just fine. I just want to bring real me, and I
Mm.
feel like because of that, because I'm so transparent and open about the stuff I struggle with, it just resonates, man. And I think that's the big thing that's really so many of my guys. I'm the lead one to putting the prayer requests on a prayer request board. Like we have a prayer request board, and I'm putting stuff out there, and I'm supposed to be like the leader of the community, right? Like, but look, yo, like the leader, no, no, I'm just another member here, a servant of Christ. We're gonna do this stuff together, and I got crap
Yeah.
too. So I think that's resonating with a lot of the guys.
I love that. Authenticity, my friends, is a big deal. So this is why we talk about it a lot, particularly online. People want to know, they want to hear from you, and they want to relate to your struggles because they've got them too, right? And we all know that. So, okay, if you could do one thing differently at the start of your community, like if you could change something about it, what would it be?
If I would think the biggest thing I would change would be to start earlier. I just wish we started the community earlier
Mm,
because that one to many was going so good, and I felt like I took too long to get started. But I mean I'm learning now, but I just think if you're thinking about this community thing, I would just tell you to lean into it and start because there has been nothing as transformative in my personal life just with these men that I'm trying to serve and trying to help that has come from just starting this community and never would have happened if I would have just been focusing on growing the podcast and or maybe
mm,
one-on-one coaching. I mean, that's a great model, right? I mean, that maybe that is your model, but for me, this cohort style of bringing guys together, man, it has just been it's been fulfilling. It's bringing me a lot of joy, and also to see the impact it's making in people's lives. Like we direct got some stories, bro, that would just blow your mind.
yeah. Is there one that some results that you're seeing among your members that kind of surprise you and
Yeah,
you're kind of proud of?
the biggest one, and I give God all the glory. But we had a guy join in November, and he joined and actually said, "You know what? My wife has served me divorce papers. I know I need to be a better man, a better leader, and I just need you. I need to be around more strong Christian men." So he started coming to the events. He came to the Thursday night Bible study. He would come to the daily spiritual kickoff. We would text from time to time, and we just started praying together. I mean, we literally would just pray for this man, and we would tell him like, "Look, you stop trying to win her. Start being the man that she needs, right? You just start being, you take care of you and be that leader of yourself. Like that's how you advance and move things down the field. Like, so focus on God and do that. He messaged me last weekend and he was like, Chris, I'm happy to say that my wife came to our bedroom, tore up the divorce papers. We're reconciled. We're still going to counseling, but divorce is off the table. He's like, so you can officially say that the line within us is saving marriages. And I was like, all right, brother, I'm going to give all the glory to the Holy Spirit. But that's incredible. And he's like, his wife actually said, I give the credit to the change in my husband because the men that he's been around in the community. And I was like, man, how much better a testimony can you get than that? It's just like, that's what it's all about. Does that happen every day? No, I'd be lying if I told you that, but I can tell you is one thing, it's happened in his marriage, and that's proof enough for me.
Right. And sometimes if you can just reach one person, right? Like you keep that in mind and
Right.
because you're not going to hear every story even that happens. One thing I love most about CPA is there's a lot of things that happen in their connections that are made that I never even see, right? And that's the way I want it. So that's what I wanted. I love it, Chris. I love the story of you starting the Line Within Us and kind of just creating that community, because I think it teaches us something really important. Friends, if you're a podcaster, think about starting your own community. And you heard what Chris said, right? His only regret is that he wished they didn't start it sooner, right? That it needed to be started sooner. He gave us some ideas about how to get started, but don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of charging. Do it for free. Experiment a lot. Figure out what people need. But for real community dependent, regardless of what your message is, it will grow your audience. It will grow you. It'll challenge you and your mindset, and it will help your show. And I think these little micro communities are kind of what the future of not only the internet and content is going to be, but it's really where a lot of that power is. So that's what I think we've heard from you. Chris, is there anything you want to leave us with? I'm going to tell people where to find you here in just a minute, but what do you want to leave us with?
I mean, my biggest thing, man, is just what I leave everybody with whenever I talk to them is, look, you just need to be obedient and do whatever he tells you to do. And he is the Holy Spirit. And if you just do that and just be obedient to whatever he's called you to do, you can unleash the Lion within. And for me, that means starting a community and getting out here and being very uncomfortable on live shows like this. And, someone who deals with stress and anxiety, this is not exactly my cup of tea, but I'm doing it because I'm being obedient. And I really feel like if we just had more of that obedience in our daily walk, and we're just up to whatever he calls us to, just like Mary says in John 2, those waiters, they probably thought that Jesus was crazy when he said to fill those water jugs up with water, right? But when that stuff turned to wine, they looked pretty awesome then, didn't they? So I mean, just be obedient to whatever he calls you, and you can't go wrong.
Amen. Absolutely. All right, guys. So Chris, you can find Chris at thelionewithin.us with .us, right? So thelionewithin.us.
.us. Yep.
So that's where it is. And you mentioned that 30-day trial, which I think is a really cool way to go as well. So you can sign up, gentlemen, if you're interested in the community, sign up there, do that, and try it out and see how that goes for sure. Chris, thanks for sharing with us here some of your story.
Yeah, and for sure. I mean, if you're thinking about community, seriously jump in it. I don't mind. Open book. We've had several people jump in because they want to know how to start a community. I'm completely open. I'm okay. I'm cool with that. You're not going to make me mad. I mean, if I can help you advance and help you with your call, just pop in a community. Hey, let's have a conversation. I would ask that you tell me that that's why you're there. And then, hey, I will get on. I've gotten on several Zoom calls. I'll open up the back end of the Mighty Networks and show you what it looks like and just give you a rundown, because I mean, if it advances the kingdom in one way or the other, that's what it's all about.
There you go. I love that. Thank you for that generous offer. That's fantastic. I appreciate it.
For sure.
All right. Great. Hey, you feel good? That was great. So that's the end of the recording of the episode, but we're still live. So FYI.
Okay. See, there's a lot of questions, man.
There's some questions. And so we're going to answer some of those for you right now. I'm going to scroll back because we had a whole bunch of stuff. So Joey was talking about, he wants to do some of this. So Joey, you should get in the group. Definitely. Let's see.
Oh, Dan Luiz is out there, man. I know old Dan, man.
You know Dan? Dan's a great guy and a Cardinals fan.
Yeah. I've been on his show. He's been on mine, man.
Oh, that's great. I love it. Um, let's see. So here, like Joey was asking, how can I find what men are struggling? So he's having trouble getting connection in Facebook group. What I loved about that is you were like, hey, look, I'm going to reach out to people individually and having those conversations.
Yeah. I think that's where it starts, Joey, man. It's just starting us having those one-on-one conversations. And it could just be you have those one-on-one conversations with guys at your church that you can connect with, like my discipleship group that I have, like my Sunday school group. I can't connect with them. So I started my own discipleship group of guys. And like we talk about the real stuff, so just trying to find ways to have meaningful, authentic conversations where people don't have all these big doggone filters up. I think that's just key.
Yeah, absolutely. Start out with that one-on-one and just keep having the conversations. It'll happen. You don't have to force it. So I'm not sure who this was. They said they loved the idea of the beta group, which I thought was pretty cool. And then you can always do the paywall later. That's fascinating, right?
Yep.
Where'd you get that idea?
Well, I mean, I follow several different people that, Pat Flynn, Shane Sams. I've been on the Flip Lifestyle podcast before, Stu McLaren. So all these different people who teach you how to have these, grow these communities. And I just thought, you know what, I'm going to start it for free. And then, because I need to prove to myself, one, that how I can create content that I could do it.
Yes.
And then that gave me an opportunity to have, like you said, that sounding board, right? I mean,
Right.
It's nothing worse than like, think that I built this product that everybody likes and then nobody buys it, So it was just a really cool way to really test things out. But I made it super short. I was that quarter of hustle was straight up hustle. I mean, I was busting out stuff every day, putting stuff in the community, having events, bringing guys together, brainstorming, because that was my time. I didn't want to give myself a year because then all of a sudden people, they think it should be free, right? So I made it a deadline. I stuck to the deadline, and here we are.
Yep. All right. Leslie said, I have a very active Facebook group with 1,200 members. That's a lot. So
Wow.
we talk about a woman's second active life, which I love. That's really great. Plans to start a podcast soon. That's good, but it's slow. Well, Leslie, let me know. Like if you want to get on a call, I can definitely help with that. So let's figure it out. And I know that.
And that Joey guy, man, if you want to email me, Chris at thelinewithin.us, man. I see you got 121 guys. You want to serve Bradley's. Yo, we should just talk. Chris at thelinewithin.us. Hit me up. Be glad to help you out any way I can. Or join the community. I can show you how we're doing it in the community. Like I said, 30 days free.
Yep, go check it out. Absolutely. We've got some good comments about James. Let's see. Joey says one of his biggest obstacles coming up with content and feeling that he's messed up. How can he speak into other men? But I think that's part of what you did, right?
So what's this question? Coming up with content?
He says coming up with content, but then also feeling a sort of imposter syndrome, right? That I'm kind of messed up, but then also trying to speak it to other men about how to be better men. And sometimes the community that you draw around you is the community that you need, not the community like where you're the expert.
Yeah, exactly, bro. And remember, like nobody can refute your testimony. So use your testimony to help drive your content. I mean, some of our best podcast episodes, one of the best ones is when I talk about my struggles with anxiety. And I'm very open with that, right? Another one was when we lost our daughter. And like I called it Lions in Quiet Delivery Rooms, and how we lost her at our due date, and how the grieving process with our wife. And we don't need to put up these fake walls of like being Superman. Like, no, the best thing we can do is just lament and cry with her. So, I mean, just being real through stuff like that, walking through my divorce, what that looked like, and how I had to raise a 3 and a 5-year-old little girls looking at me because their mom left, So, I mean, just being super transparent on stuff like that, it's very uncomfortable for some people. But for me, it's just, I went through those trials for a reason. So why not use that to help other people? And that's what I find out, man. So, I mean, I think let that drive your content. Your story can drive it.
Yep. Absolutely. Okay, so Leslie had a couple other questions for us. One was,
sure.
What are your thoughts about Patreon? I have thoughts about Patreon, but what do you think?
I don't use it, to be honest, man. I probably should. I just haven't used Patreon. We go donors. So we just have a donate page on our website. So we got some donors that do monthly and things like that. I just never tried that monetization model. So that it's me directly.
So here's my thoughts on Patreon. Patreon essentially is the ability to create a community, right? A paid community. So if you have something like a membership like you have, like I have, you don't necessarily need Patreon for that, because the whole idea of Patreon is you're delivering extra content or community in ways that you can connect with your people. So,
Right.
um, it's so membership page either on Patreon or elsewhere is not. I mean, you should do it, but that's they're not different things, is what I think I was going to say. So, then she had another question. So, how do you create subgroups based on affinity or community within a larger Facebook group? Man, that's a good question. I'm not sure. I do that with posts, actually. So we'll have a post every month that is about guesting, right? So not everybody in the CPA Facebook group is a
Mm-hmm.
podcaster. Actually, some of them are people who want to be guests, but that's what I tell them. Go there because that post will be your thing, the place for you. So I don't know. You have thoughts on that, Chris?
My primary thought is the community. If you can build it out, that's why I went outside of Facebook first. Now I'm not bashing Facebook, but that's why I wanted to do something like this because you're just right. What was her name? Um, uh, she's exactly right though, because within our community we can create those subgroups around topics. I think that's kind of what she was talking to, like these certain areas,
Yep.
and then that gives guys a direct place to go, and that's where that content can live. It's easy to navigate. And I mean, I can even show out there. I think there's a screen share. I'd be glad to share it at some point if we want to do that on
Oh,
this
yeah.
live. I can show that.
Yeah, that'd be great. All right, let me see what else we got. Other questions. What other questions you guys got? I'm kind of scrolling through here. Let's see. Chris asked a question. We have a pretty good Facebook group, but struggle with creating a community. How can we revitalize it or bring it to life?
I think you got to help them solve a problem.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the more that you can help them solve a problem, or you have where they're at right now, right, and then you have where they want to be. So just create that little timeline and maybe put 5 little blocks in there. And what are little steps you can help them, get to that where they need to be? I think if you can just do that, I mean, for me, it's around leadership and just helping these guys around health, wealth, and self, like I've talked about before. So I just create little bitty areas to remind them, or just give them a little bit of tidbits of, okay, if I improve this is the results. I don't think you have to make it super complicated, man. The quicker hit, the
Yep.
better.
Chris's show is a Bible study show, so I think actually like stealing your idea of doing a Bible study every morning,
Yep.
for 30 days or whatever, might be a really great way to get people engaged as well, Chris. So that you maybe give that
Oh, for sure. If that's what he's doing, man.
a
Like
shot.
my feedback on our SKO has been incredible. The guys show up. It's always different guys. It usually is around 10 or 12, maybe up to 15. And again, our community is less than 50 people. So that's a pretty big group of engaged people out of the size of the community. So just find ways to connect, and don't feel like you have to super stress out over it either. I mean, I make it's my daily Bible time, and that's just what I share with people.
Yeah, that's perfect. All right, Chris, you were going to show us something behind the scenes, but I don't think I know how to make that happen in my platform. So
I
that's
got a screen share right here.
do you hit that? See what happens. Let's see what
Yeah,
happens.
I got it right here. So you should have somebody
Oh,
in the
hold
chat
on,
had.
hold on, because your audio is messed up. It doesn't sound good.
Really?
Let's see if I can do this. No. Oh yeah. Nope. Your audio is kind of wonky now.
Oh man.
I used to have a little device when I was a kid that would do that for me. It was great. This is not what I want. Yeah, it's okay. It's all right. So I don't know. I don't know what happened. Yeah, so I can see. Oh, so maybe I could put this. If I put this here, there we go. So this is Mighty Networks. Is that right? I think so. So, Chris, if you could still hear me, yeah, scroll through a little bit. So this is how you got like book club, and so you got the feed. People can scroll through. So it's sort of similar to social media. Yeah, and click through a little bit. And yep, upcoming. So those are events. You can schedule events. Super cool. And you've planned out a ways in advance, it looks like. I want to know what SKO stands for. Oh, spiritual kickoff. Got it. Okay, that's good. Yeah, yeah. That's great. Okay, so that's a good look. Very cool. Mighty Networks is a cool platform. It just depends on what you're trying to do. You got videos. I love it. All right, I'm gonna bring you back in, Chris. Let's see if I put. Oh, you're in the. Oh, where'd Chris go? There we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, no, I can hear you.
All right.
Excellent.
I was trying to scroll and make sense of it, yo.
That was good. I was trying to do some commentary, but it looks
Yeah,
great.
you were doing a great job. I can hear you. Yeah.
Well, thanks for. I'm glad you could see that because I tell you what, the whole thing with I'm still learning the software, but so that worked out pretty good. Very good. All right, friends. I hope that this has been helpful. I don't see any other questions coming through here, and we're happy to help. But we mentioned where you could meet. So Joey asked, should I start doing Facebook Lives? Yeah, do those. Like in your group, show up every day or every week or something regularly for your audience. That will help every day.
Leslie said she wants Facebook in the rear view. I'm with you. I mean, straight up. And Leslie, I know if you want to see it more where you can actually hear me, just send an email, Chris@thelinewithin.us. I'll be glad to show you.
Yeah, there you go.
More deets on what's going on with it.
Yeah, my biggest struggle with that is Facebook is very distracting, and so it's hard to capture an audience there a lot. Although CPA has grown, I really would love to put people into to help people find more community inside of Kajabi, because I use Kajabi, but they've got a new community product. I don't know if that was there when you started, but it's great and it helps. But you know what? Sometimes it's just something different, right? It's more places for people to go. So I think that's been the one thing I've had trouble with. But anyway, we could work on that. So Chris, thanks for being here. This has been so building community for your podcast. I think building a community is really, really valuable. And this podcast episode will be out later this summer. But Chris, once again, thelionwithin.us. Go check that out, guys. Any
It's Chris@thelionwithin.us for Leslie. I think that's what she's asking.
Perfect. Yep, that's right.
Don't forget the THE lionwithin.us.
Yeah, there you go. And Chris, I think you're in. I don't know if you're in the Facebook group or not. I'll invite you.
Yeah,
so you can get in
there. I am. It's from my wife's account, like Chris Rebecca Grainger.
Yeah,
we're
perfect.
in there
so
too.
You can go in.
The best way is the email if you can, but I'll try to check the Facebook stuff.
Yeah.
And then so far as Joey asked about other platforms, I mean, I've looked at Circle, Kajabi, 2 or 3 others. So Joey, we can connect on that if that would help.
Beautiful. I love it. Chris has been great. Thanks a lot for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you, brother.
See you guys.